Hello everyone, welcome to our box building video. My name is Robert Garza, and on this video we're going to build all types of subwoofer enclosures. We're going to start with the acoustic suspension, also known as sealed. We're going to do the bass reflect, also known as the ported, and we're going to do a band pass, which uses two different ports. So what do we need to get started? Well, we obviously need a lot of MDF wood. We need some subwoofers. We're going to use the JL sub. We're going to use the Boston Acoustics sub. We need a nice table saw. We got this Delta 50-inch table saw. We've got some Select Products glue. This is MDF glue, specially designed for our industry. And also a nice brad nail gun. We're going to need a tape measure, a pencil, maybe even a specialty template, all depending on the subwoofer you're using, whether it be square, oval, round. It's good to have a template. If you don't have a template, you can make a template. The first enclosure we're going to build is going to be the sealed enclosure. I've chosen the Boston Acoustics new speaker because it wants an exact 1.0 cubic foot box. You have your owner's manual here, and I'll put this up on the screen for you. But most owner's manuals will give you the depth of the speaker, which is very important when you're making an enclosure, the radius, the cutting. Sometimes they'll give you a template. We're going to definitely use this template. And sometimes they'll give you different enclosures to build. This one has a sealed 1.0. You can go two different ported enclosures here. They have a 2.5 and a 2.1 with different ports to give you different performance, either sound quality or high performance. So what we need to do is cut some of our MDF. We obviously have 4x8 sheets. Anytime you're cutting the 4x8 sheets, make sure somebody helps you. I'm going to trim them down to 4x4 so they're a little easier to manage, and then we'll get started. We're ready to start, and what we want to do is sketch out the speaker that we're going to build. Now you're going to have a restraint somewhere in the vehicle. You're either going to have a depth problem or a width problem, so you're going to have to build the enclosure to obviously fit the vehicle. One number you want to remember is 1728, so write it down, 1728. That's 1 cubic foot, and that's how everything is going to be calculated. We're going to build a sealed enclosure for this speaker, 1 cubic foot exactly. Now in the manual, it gives us dimensions on the depth of the speaker, the width of the speaker, but I like to double check them anyway. And the depth of the speaker, as you can see, is about 8¼ inches. The width is about 14 3/4, and the height is about 12. That's a pretty big speaker. It also holds 1,000 watts, I've been told, so I can't wait to plug this baby in. Let's draw just our basic box. And then our basic cube. I know you all know how to draw a cube. Very simple. Okay. Now let's say that the speaker is going to be here. So we need the width dimension, we need the depth dimension, and then we need the height dimension. Now we already know that we want to build this specific enclosure as shallow as possible. So if we have 8¼ inches, we're going to want to leave room, especially if it's a speaker that breathes from the bottom, which most of them do. This one seems to breathe from every direction. So let's leave at least 1/2 inch on the bottom. So let's go with 8 3/4 inches. So we'll go 8 3/4 inches deep. Now on the width, I'm thinking, let's go with 15. And then on the height, I'm thinking 12.5. So we'll go 12.5. So once you have those, and that could be the measurement of the vehicle or whatever you want to design and build, take your calculator. And let's see what we got here. We got 15 times 12.5 times 8.75, so that's all three dimensions, and that gives us a number of 1640. Now if I divide that by 1728, that's going to give me the cubic foot of the enclosure, and it's 0.949, so it's a little small. So we need to push in one direction. Let's take this 12.5 and make it a 13 and see what that 1/2 inch gives us. So 15 times 13 times 8.75 equals, that's 1706, it's almost there. Why don't we just round this 8 3/4? We really want to stick with that. Let's leave that at 8 3/4. And then let's push this another 1/2 inch, I think we'll do it. So 13.5. So here we go, 15 times 13.5 times 8.75 equals 1771. It's a little big now. Divided by 1728. 1.025, which is actually the same if you take the manual, which I did earlier. I took the manual dimensions, which were 10.5 by 13 by 13, and they were also at 1.02. And so if we build the same enclosure, according to this graph, we should get the same exact frequency response. So that's what we're going to build. We're ready to go now. We have our cut sheet here. We've got our front and our back, our top, bottom, and the sides. Now on the front and the back of the enclosure, those are going to be your outside pieces. So we're going to have to increase the size on those. We've got 15.5. We're going to increase that by 1.5 inches, so you have the two boards. We'll increase that to 17 inches. Now on the other dimension, the 13.5, we're also going to increase that to 15 inches. So it'll give us the 1.5 inches on both sides. On the top and the bottom, now the width is going to have to be the same as the front, so it's going to be 17. But then the second dimension, the 8 3/4 is going to be an inside dimension, so that'll be 8 3/4. Now the side pieces, those are going to go inside, and those are going to be the actual inside dimensions, 15.5 by 8 3/4. Now I increased the overall width so that we could push the inserts in 1/4 inch, so that when we wrap it with carpet, we can do some nice side panels, maybe with some acrylic, and make it look nice. So we have our pieces here. We've got our 4x8 sheet ready to go. We've got our safety glasses. Our cut sheet is here. I'm going to set that down. We've got our tape measure. Now what I like to do before getting started on the table saw is I'll bring the blade up about 1 inch, and I'll check to make sure that it's set properly. I'm going to set this at the nearest inch here, which is 15. And I'm going to take my tape measure and measure the front of the blade and also the back of the blade. And I'm measuring the far inside cutting edge to make sure that it's straight, and also to make sure that the gauge is accurate, and to make any adjustments if you need to. I've already adjusted this one, so this one's ready to go. So here we go. Now on our cut sheet, we got 17 by 15. On our top and bottom, we have 17 by 3/4. So I'm thinking we set it at 17 and we can knock out all 4 pieces right away. I always like to cut as much wood as I can at the same dimension, because even if you move the fence back and forth, it's never going to be accurate. You're always going to be a 32nd or a 16th inch off. This way your box fits together perfectly, nice and tight, and it seals up. Have the blade up about 1 inch. You only need the blade about 1/4 inch higher than the material. That one's looking pretty good right there. Make sure you stay against the fence. Even pressure on both sides of the blade, but make sure you carry through on the right side. You don't want that blade grabbing onto that piece of wood and throwing it back at you. It's always a good idea. Now this one, you just bump it with your knee and it shuts off. It's always a good idea to shut it off while you're moving boards around. Now our next dimension is 15 for the front and the back. So we can set that. So there's our front and our back ready to go. Now for our top and bottom, we need 8 3/4. I always like to double check myself when you start getting a square piece of wood like this. Double check and make sure you're putting the 17 through the blade properly. All right, so we have 4 of our pieces. Now the next is 15.5 by 8 3/4. Now we have our 8 3/4 set and ready to go. And like I said, like to always cut the same size if we can. Last dimension we need is 15 1/2. Always leave your saw blade down in case for some reason it happens to turn on all on its own. Now we have all of our pieces cut. We've got our side pieces, our top and our bottom, and our front and our back. Now this is where the subwoofer will actually be mounted, and this will be the back plate. So if we were to turn it all upside down or right side up so the woofer is firing up, this would be on the bottom. We would take our side boards here, and those would go right there if it wants to cooperate, so I can show you what this looks like. There we go. This one would go here. You have your side boards. One would go in the back. Now remember that we're going to inset these 1/4 of an inch so that when we're covering it with carpet, we can roll the edges and tuck them into this corner and make an enclosure that looks really nice. So there's our piece. Subwoofer here. Voila. We're ready to put the enclosure together now. So we're going to need a few items. We're obviously going to need a really strong glue. This is an MDF glue that Select Products sells. You can use a wood glue, that'll work fine, but you want something that's nice and strong. You're going to need a brad nailer to hold the enclosure in place while the glue is drying, and I say it in that manner because it's really the glue that holds your box together, not the nails. So you don't need to be going crazy with a million nails. It's mainly the glue, so use a good amount of glue. Now this is a brad nailer. It shoots 18 gauge brads, and these are 1¼ inch long, so we have good penetration into the second piece of wood so that we have it nice and secure. We're also going to need silicone. This is the black silicone. It also comes in clear, and we're going to want to seal it to make it airtight because this is a sealed enclosure, and it's very important that we keep it nice and sealed. We're going to need our gauge here. This is going to be set at 1/4 inch, so when we put in the sides, we can press those in 1/4 inch so we have our box volume exactly where we want it. Also have our safety glasses in case we need, especially when we're shooting the brads. You're going to want to wear safety glasses. Now this is the top, and we're going to make it the top. I'm going to put a T here on the top, and that's where our speaker is going to go, so we always know that's the top. Now I'm going to take the top. Remember, the inserts are going to be coming in, the sides are going to be coming in 1/4 inch. So the first thing we want to attach is the front and the back. So I'm going to set the front and the back right where they go, making sure that they're flush on both sides. I'm going to set the sides off to the side, set these in place. Make sure they're completely flush. Okay, now I'm going to take the glue and I'm going to run a nice bead of glue, and I'm going to put enough glue that it pushes out all the way, but that it doesn't make it create a big mess. So a nice bead of glue all the way. I'm going to hook up my brad nailer to the air so it's ready to go. I'm going to throw my safety glasses on. We're in no big rush here. This glue doesn't dry all that fast. We're probably talking about an hour or two. So this is the bottom. We're going to set the bottom on here. And the glue will give you that cushion so you can actually move it around and make it perfect. Now I'm not really worried about the back side right now. I'm just worried about the one right in front of me. I'm using my fingers on both sides to make sure that it's set right on. I'm going to push it down, pushing the glue out, and you can see the glue's coming out here. And I'm going to take my brad nailer and I'm going to shoot a couple of brads in it, making sure it's absolutely perfect. Now these are adjustable in depth, so you want to make sure that you're countersinking just a little bit. There you go, 4 brads, that's all we really need. We don't need to do 27 of them along here. And now I'm going to wipe the glue. Okay, that side's done. Now I'm going to spin it around carefully. Now this side may not be completely lined up perfect, so we're going to squeeze it from left to right, front to back. And on occasion you'll work on some MDF that's not exactly straight. So what you want to do is start fastening it from one side and then finishing it up on the other side and bending the wood as you need to so that it attaches square at both ends. It's the only way you're going to get your other pieces in. So again, 4 brads. So our next step we want to do is slide in the sides and pre-fit them. If we built the enclosure with very tight tolerances, they'll fit just perfect. And if we didn't build it right at all, it will tell us now. And before we get too far along, we want to know. So if I just press it in flush, as you can see, it fits perfectly. Little or no air gaps all the way around. But remember, we want to sink that in 1/4 of an inch, so make sure that you have your right angle, your gauge here, set at 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to press fit that in when we glue it. So what I'm going to do now is flip it over. I'll pull this out. We're going to glue the 3 sides. And this can sometimes get a bit messy because the glue is going to drip off the wood. So I try and hold it over the piece I'm working on so I don't get it on the table. And then we're going to press fit it in. And the glue gives us a little bit of lubrication, if you will. And we're going to come in that 1/4 of an inch. So use your gauge here and measure in 1/4 of an inch top and bottom. And once you have it set, you're ready to put the brads in. Now you want to make sure you push this down nice and tight so your glue spreads out along the bottom. Have your brad nailer ready to go. We're going to check this bottom corner, push it tight against there. Check this top, push it tight against there. Now the first brad I put in is going to be right here because I know the measurement is absolutely perfect. I got my finger holding it. Put 1 brad in and we're going to double check it. It's perfect. Now I'm going to set the bottom with my gauge. Pop the brad in and keep moving. Now at this point I want to wipe off the excess glue, mainly on the outside. I'm not really concerned about the inside of the enclosure. The excess glue there will give us just some strength and that'll be just fine. That's exactly what it should look like right there. 1/4 of an inch all the way. So here's our box, almost finished. It was going pretty quick. We've got our back in there, our sides, top and bottom. All that's left is to put the subwoofer face on. Now before we put the top on, this is a great opportunity to silicone your other edges because there's really nothing in your way. So I'm going to take some black silicone, I'm going to have a rag handy, and I'm going to put a bead on every edge. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to make sure I push it in and also spread the silicone a little wider to give me even more coverage. And that's what it should look like, just like that. And of course, now when you put the top on, we can put the silicone and glue all in one shot. And this is a very fast, efficient way to build enclosures, especially when you have a customer waiting and you're trying to make some money. Now, with the top, we have a couple different options. Depending on the enclosure that you're building, we can secure it and then cut our hole in it and run with it. With this one, I'm going to cut the hole in before we mount it. Give that silicone a little bit time to dry, get the enclosure a little bit time to dry, and so I can show you guys how to use the jigsaw foam and our jigsaw. So we're going to need our pencil, we're going to need our template for the speaker, and put the brad nailer away for now. We're also going to need a drill with, I have a 1/2-inch drill bit in it. All you need is something big enough for a jigsaw blade. We've got our cordless jigsaw ready to go. We're going to take out our jiggy foam. For those of you who have never seen this before, this is our jigsaw foam, and it's exactly what it is. It's designed to be used with a jigsaw as a working surface. It's 6 inches of styrofoam. No big tricks here, but it gives you a nice surface to work on. The board's not going to be moving around. You're not off the edge of a table like this, messing up your board or cutting up your trash cans. Give us a call here at Select and we'll send you one of these. So we have our top. I'm going to put a little arrow here for facing up so I know which side is up. We've got our template. And I'm going to center our template left and right, top and bottom. Then I'm going to draw the line on here exactly where the speaker hole needs to be. So I'm going to mark also the holes where the screws go. Now this is the first time that I'm using the speaker in my shop, and when it's the first time you're using the speaker in your shop, this will be your master, and you'll mark it master. And once you make it perfect, you just hang it on the wall, and every time you do the speaker, you have this template, and then you use the router table just like you've seen in my router videos. But we're building this old school. So we have everything marked off here. We know exactly where our hole is going to be. We even know where our screw holes are going to be, so if we want to pilot drill those, which I will. Put it on our jigsaw foam, take our drill, make sure that we don't cut into the line that we want to cut. I'm staying about 1/4 of an inch away from that line. Once the white stuff comes up, you know that you're all the way through it. And I'm actually going to do 2 just to make life a little easier on me. There we go. Now our jigsaw with a nice upcut blade on it. It's looking pretty sharp. Should do the trick. Now I'm going to stay on the line, make sure that my board is on my jigsaw foam, and I'm going to cut right on the line. Just to touch on another piece of safety with a jigsaw, because I've done some trainings before and I've seen some guys get a little scary. You always want to make sure that you're cutting away from yourself with the jigsaw. So work in this fashion here. Now I know I had it over here, but that's mainly because I want you guys to be able to see what I'm cutting on camera. But for safety reasons, don't be cutting this way. Cut away from yourself. Now what we want to do is test fit the speaker, make sure that she fits. That perfect fit. Nice, really tight. And that's the way you want it. You don't want a lot of movement in your baffle. You want it to be nice and tight, and if you have a template, it'll be perfect. All right, so there we have it. We're ready to go. That baby is perfect. All right, we have our baffle finished, ready to go. Now we're ready to put it on top of the enclosure. It's going to go right there. Okay. Same procedure as before. Put a nice bead of glue all the way around. Now what you can also do at this point is take the silicone, and if you put it right on the inner edge, and then you put this on there, all you have to do is run your finger around and you're ready to go. It's a little trick I learned. So we're going to go with a little bit of silicone. Now we're going to mount the top. Let it sit right on there. And we're going to push down on it. Since we have the silicone on the inside ledge, it should be pushing that towards the inside of the enclosure, and it is. We're going to line up the corners and brad nail it down. And now I can adjust everything from that one. That one's perfect on both sides. Now I've got this one, push down on it. I want the glue, I want to see some of that glue come out. Excellent. So we have our box almost built. We still want to add a few pro touches to it. The first pro touch I like to do is use the terminal cup. It's very nice and professional. You can use banana plugs, spades, bare wire, whatever. And they go in about a few seconds. All you need is the proper hole saw. I'm going to put this baby right here. Oh, there we are. We've got our hole there for our terminal cup. Ready to go. Nice touch. Better than a hole and some silicone for the wire to go through. All right, we're ready to cover the enclosure with carpet. This is our AutoFab Deluxe carpet. This is my favorite carpet because it has latex backing to it. It cuts perfect straight lines with a razor knife. It's very easy to work with. It comes 2 yards wide, 72 inches, so you can carpet everything in one piece. We also have a couple of the easy adhesives to work with. This is our Installer Bond 120, and this is our Contact Cement 225. These are both great adhesives. They come in the aerosol cans, and they're very easy to work with. So we're going to use either one of those. We've got our enclosure, we've got our Alpha razor knife. Now I've put a piece of cardboard down here so I don't get any glue on my table. First thing you want to do is cut the carpet to size so you don't have too much carpet for the enclosure. Makes it a little easier to handle. And what I'm doing right here is I want to make sure that this side will wrap at least all the way to the bottom of the other side of the enclosure. And that's really all you need because we're going to seam it in the middle, but that'll give you plenty of excess. So now that I have the width of the carpet cut, I'm going to want to cut the length, and we're going to be using wrapping technique, just like wrapping a Christmas present. I'm going to spin it around so you can see. So we want it to be able to overlap so that we can seam it. And you always want to cut your carpet a little bit big right now because it's impossible to add to it without it looking terrible, but it's always easy to cut some off. So we're going to cut this baby right here, right at the top of the box. So now we have our carpet ready to go. Now we want to put on the glue. Now I have the carpet upside down. And I always want to start on the piece that's going to show the most. And you always want to put your seam in the back or where you're never going to see it. So keep that in mind. Now obviously for this enclosure, this is where we're going to see the most. And this is where we're not going to see it all. So I'm going to position the enclosure so that when I wrap it, my seam is right here. But let's say I want to do the seam over here, then I'll move it this way, fold it up, so that my seam is here. And then I'll move the enclosure up, center it, take my adhesive, and apply the adhesive to the carpet and also to the enclosure. Now this is the 120, and the 120 is a pressure sensitive adhesive, and it's very fast to work with. and there's almost no waiting time. As soon as you have it on, you're ready to go. Okay? Putting a little second layer on here just to make sure I didn't miss any spots. All right, it's pressure sensitive, there's no waiting. We're going to bring this forward and slap it down. That way we know that the front is always going to be perfect. Okay, so now we have the front glued in place, ready to go. Now this back piece here, I'm not going to attach just yet, but I am going to put the glue on the back of the box. We're going to do that last. I'm going to glue the top of the box, or actually this is the bottom of the box. Spin it around here. Make sure my cardboard stays in place so I don't mess up my table saw. You don't want glue on your table saw, trust me. So you can see I'm putting the glue right where I know the box is going to be. Now we do have excess carpet on here. And we do want to glue everything that we're going to use. With this AutoFab Deluxe latex backing, it's really nice and strong. Now we don't have any glue here yet, so I'm going to glue that up. So now the box has glue all the way around it. It's pretty much ready to go. So our next step is I'm going to roll it towards me. See how it picked up the part that we wanted. Now we're going to make sure there's no wrinkles here and just set it down and do the same thing again. Those are going to be the easiest panels to wrap right there. There's not much to it. Now we have the top where the speaker goes right here. Making sure that's good. It's tacked down perfectly. There's no bubbles along the edges. That's looking good. Now I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to set it this way so you can see. Now we want to seam this without having any seam or any visual seam, even though it may be against the seat in the car or tucked away in a corner. It's always good to practice good upholstery and keep it nice and seamed. Now you have a couple of choices to make now. Where do you want the seam? Do you want the seam along an edge? Do you want the seam in the middle? Doesn't matter to me. All right, the first thing you want to do with seaming is we're going to bring one side over, rub it just like this, not too hard, and I'm going to cut off this excess, making sure I don't cut the carpet on the other side. And now I'm going to bring this carpet right on top of the bottom carpet, and I'm going to try and pull it a little bit tight. And now with a nice strong razor, I'm going to slice both of them right down the middle. Now I'm going to pick this one up, fold this one back. Now this one, the first one that we laid down, will come up. There's still plenty of glue there. Now when we fold this back, you can seam them perfectly together. And you'll see just a bit of a line there, but that's really it. And that's a nice acceptable seam. So now we need to do the edges, or the ends. Now we have this 1/4 inch spacer, which is really going to make life easy for us. So what we want to do right now is just cut it down to where it's a manageable length. Let's say about 4 inches. So I'm going to pull off everything except for 4 inches. Now what we want to do is basically wrap this 3/4 inch ledge and push in
the carpet right into the corner. And then what we'll do, we have an option. We can cut a piece of this. It was 8 3/4 by 13.5, as my memory tells me, and we can press something on the outside of that. So we're going to start at the seam because we want those two to be nice and tight together. Have to pull a little bit. And now with your finger, you're going to tuck it into that 1/4 inch. Now when you get to the corners, this is the tricky part. Now you want to make sure that you roll in as much as you can on both sides. So your corner kind of peeks up like this. Make sure you roll one all the way over, and then roll the next one over. And now come in right in the middle. You want to slice right in the middle here, and you want to slice through everything. So you're going to have to push a little bit hard. Have a nice strong razor. You're going to go down that step and come all the way out. Now once you do that, this little piece hanging here, you want to cut it a little long because you never know if you need a little piece to tuck back in there. These two pieces are going to come apart, and this piece should come out. And now all you have left is the two pieces that will seam together perfectly, just like that. Now this little piece here, we're just going to do a little trim, tuck it in, and there you have that perfect corner, just the way you want it. All right, now we have both ends done. Our next step is to cut out the center. Just cut right along that 1/4 inch. So you have a piece that looks just like that. And now it's ready to accept. You can do some smoke mirror. That would be cool. Colored mirror. Anything you want. Another piece of colored carpet. I think that's what we'll do. We'll do a piece of black carpet in there. It'll look really cool. I've got some black carpet, same AutoFab Deluxe. Set the enclosure on the side for a moment. Now what I have here is another piece of wood that's cut the exact same size as the insert would be, and you can use this as a template for plastic or maybe a piece of aluminum or liquid ice, whatever you want as your template. And I'm going to use it as a template here for the carpet, and the carpet usually has one straight edge on it, so I'm going to capitalize on that one straight edge and then trim the piece right to size. Okay. So letting the blade do its cutting, I've got a piece that's a perfect rectangle with very, very little effort. Okay. There's our piece. Now for the subwoofer hole, we just need to trim that up. And this one doesn't need to be wrapped around or anything. You just want to trim it right to size. So I just do a little jigsaw motion with my razor knife. Follows the wood. We've got ourselves a nice subwoofer enclosure. And there she is. All finished up in very little time, sealed, 1 cubic foot, Boston, ready to rock and roll. We're ready to build our next enclosure. This is going to be the ported enclosure, also known as a 4th order or base reflect. We've got a pair of the JL Audio 10W1s that JL was so nice enough to donate for the video. You guys know me, you know that I have a fond feeling about this company. So we got a pair of 10s. We want to do an enclosure that's a lot more difficult than the first one that we built. Having a look at the owner's manual for the W1s, it gives us some recommendations here for the sealed enclosure. I'll put this up on the screen for you. It also gives us recommendations for ported enclosures. The 10W1 V2 4 ohm, 1 cubic foot per speaker, and it also gives us a slotted port dimension, and at the bottom here it even shows the slot on the enclosure. Now that's fine if you're making a perfect rectangle enclosure, but that's not what I want to build here. I want to build something as if the enclosure is being fitted in a hatchback up against the rear seats, or even in a trunk where the back has to be tilted in one direction so that you maximize your space of the enclosure. And that's more of a common install than just a rectangle enclosure. And so it's almost impossible to use a slotted port. It'd be very difficult to build. So we're going to use a PVC port. And what I have here is a 2.5-inch PVC port. It's very easy to pick up at any hardware store. You can use 3-inch and 4-inch, but just make sure you figure out your port dimensions. And I jumped on a couple of websites to check the port dimensions. They were all pretty consistent. The 12volt.com was a very useful one. Also, Precision Products, that was another one. Now we just need to grab our pen and pencil and draw what we need to build. So for a front view, we're just looking at basically a rectangle shape. And let's imagine that we're doing this for a hatchback. Now the enclosure is going to be separated in the middle, and we want our speakers in this area. Now we're going to want those probably very close together into the center. As I was taught, you want to always pair them as close together as possible to get the maximum performance. And then our ports, we can put our ports either in the center here, we can put them down here or over here. It really doesn't matter. Anywhere along there will be fine. Now on the side view, we're going to have, this is the front, we're going to come across the top, and then we're going to have an angle for our make-believe seat that's in the car. You can see that okay? So that's going to be our design. Now the speaker is actually going to be mounted firing back into the hatch or back into the trunk. So to do 1 cubic foot, I mean, we can do this very easy. If we went 12 by 12 by 12, that's going to give us a cubic foot. So we can get away with 12 on the height since we have a 10-inch speaker. We can get away with 12 up here, and then we can get away with 12 down here, or no, I'm sorry, since we have the angle, we're going to be 12 here, but then we're going to have to add for the angle, and you have to figure out the angle depending on the car that you're working on. But I'm going to just add 4 inches of an angle on there, because when we figure out the math, and I'll show you how to figure this one out, let's draw it again. We've got the front, the top, the back, and the bottom, and we're 12, what is that going to be, 16 and 12. Now in order to figure this out, what you want to do is just draw an imaginary line down here. Whatever this dimension is here, let's say it's 4 inches, we're going to divide that into 2 to compensate for the angle. So it's actually going to be a dimension of 2 inches, so instead of 16, it'll bring us to 14 inches. And then we'll take 14 times 12 times 12 divided by 1728, and that's a little over 1 cubic foot because we have this 14 here. So let's bring this back down to, let's say 10. And then I'll put that one at 10. Actually, we're going to have to break even. We're going to have to go 11 here and 11 here. So we'll have 11, 11 by 12 with this at 4. This will give us 15. Of course, we'll have to divide that in half, so it'll be only 2. So that'll be a 13, 11, 12, 13. And 13, 11, and 12 should give us 1 cubic foot. I've done the math on my cell phone here, my calculator, and the 12, 13, 11 gives us 0.993, so that's about 1 cubic foot. Now the other thing we have to consider is the port length. Now the port length that I calculated for this speaker, 1 cubic foot enclosure, we're going to tune it at 31 hertz, which is what JL recommends in their manual right here. They recommend a tune to 31 hertz. the port length needs to be 12 inches. And so we need to make sure that we have 12 inches in here. And what we've got is we've got 11 plus the 4. So we do have enough length to put that port right along the bottom without a problem. We should have plenty of breathable room around that port there. So we should have no problem whatsoever. So just to review, our finished product, our finished box, is going to be 11 at the top. We're going to do 12 on the face or the front, and then we're going to have 15 across the bottom with a differential of 4 inches here for an angle. So we'll have the 11 and the 4, which will give us the 15 at the bottom. And don't forget that we're going to have to divide it in the middle, so that's going to be 3/4 of an inch that we're going to have to add to the overall width. And the overall width is 24 inches, so we're going to have to compensate for that as well. We have our design. Now, just like before, we want to do our cut sheet. And we want to do it the same way that we did it before. So we're going to need the front. Mark that F for front. We're going to need the back. And we're going to need the top and the bottom. And label all of our sizes. So we know that we have to be at least 24 inches wide. So we're 12 inches tall. The back is going to be bigger because it's going to be on that angle, so we'll cut the back last. Now the top, we already know, is going to be 11 inches. So that one's going to be 11. And then the bottom, we know that size as well, and that one's going to be 15. So we have most of the dimensions, and then once we build the sides, top, bottom, the back will be very easy to measure, and we can even cut the angle on it to make it fit perfectly. And then we're going to have basically 2 sides and a center, and we want those to be the inside dimensions, just like when we built the other enclosure. I'm ready to do my first cut, and the overall width of this enclosure I have down as 24 inches. Now I need to add space for the center board, that's 3/4. I also need to add for left and the right sides that are going to inset inside the enclosure. Now, so I keep the size consistent, I'm going to add 3/4 times 3, which is 2 1/4 inches to the overall width. So that's going to put me at 26 1/4. Now, if we were to do the ends like we did before, we'd have to add another 1/2 inch so that they would inset. And let's go ahead and do that too. So that'll put us at 3/4 of an inch, so 26 3/4, and that'll give us that room that we want to inset. So 26 3/4. Basically, you're going to have the face and the back that same width, and then we'll cut down the height on the back, and the top and the bottom will be the same width as well, so that'll get us started. So 26 3/4. I got my 48-inch piece here. And lock it down and double check it before I get started. 26 3/4. Now the height is 12 inches on the inside, and we're going to need to add 3/4 of an inch to that dimension as well, because we want the baffle always to go on top. So 12 3/4, 12 3/4, so we'll be at 13.5 inches. So there's our baffle. And now we're going to cut the bottom, which is 15, and I'm going to add 3/4 of an inch to that because we want the back to mount on top of it. So 15 3/4. There's our bottom. And now the next piece we want is the top, which is going to be 11. There's our 3 pieces. Now I'm going to start with cutting the inside pieces by cutting them to 15 by 12. So we've got most of our pieces cut. Top, bottom, and front. You see there's the front, there's our top, and we have our two sides and also our center board. Last piece we're going to cut is going to be the angle piece on the back because that's kind of the most difficult one to do. Next step is we need to finish cutting our side pieces, and how we want to do that, other than fitting it in the car, which is what I normally do, is I'll take the bottom, I'll actually put it in the car, and then I'll take a piece of wood that's a little bit long, set it in the car at a certain angle, and then pull that angle and then come back and trace it onto the sideboard so I have the exact angle that I want, and that'll give us the exact angle to the car. And if this board moves back and forth, let's say 1/2 of an inch, it's not going to make a big difference in your enclosure volume. And if you wanted to, just so you had an extra buffer, you could always make it a little wider, a little taller, a little deeper, so that you had some flexibility here. But we're going to kind of stick to a basic design, and you can expand from there. So what we need to do next is finish cutting our sides and our insert piece. And how you want to do that is, let's take one, put the measurement on it. We know we have 15 by 12, and 15 is the length or depth of the enclosure. And so that's going to be up or the top, just like so. Now if we take the top that we cut, this piece right here, and we place it where it's supposed to go, it will automatically tell us that we need to cut from this point right here to this point right here, because the bottom is 15 inches. So if we take our board and line up these two, don't even really need a ruler, we can draw the line, and you can see right there the angle that we need to cut this piece at. And we can even double check it, just put the top back up here, make sure it fits flush to the front, and yeah, I'm looking good there, and we know that's good there. So there's the angle that we have to cut. Now how do we cut that angle? Very easily. Let me get this wood out of the way. Now we have these pieces right here, and we want to mark them all with an arrow so we know where the top is. Doesn't matter which one's left, right, and center, but we need to know which way the top is. So each one of them is going to be cut the same way. And how we're going to cut those is we're going to use our miter. We're going to use our miter gauge here, and we're going to put it into the saw, and we're going to set the angle at the same angle that we need to cut. And if you set that right on the saw blade, you can line it up very easily. And you always want to cut on the waist side of the line, so you should be able to leave the line right where it's at and see the pencil line when you're done cutting. And then you set it, you lock it down, hold it together, run it through the saw, and you should be ready to go. Now how you know that your angle is right and your position is right is you can raise your blade up a little bit and see where you begin and also see where you finish. So if this is locked down and I'm finished and I'm looking at the pencil mark like I'm okay, now I come back on this side and I line up the pencil mark and I make sure I'm okay. You can also look straight on, and the pencil line should line up right with the saw blade. It should be straight as an arrow. There's no way, it shouldn't have any deviation whatsoever. Now what I like to do is I'll trim one about 1/4 of an inch off the line, especially on the first pass, just to make sure that my line is nice and straight. And if I make a mistake or if it's a little bit off, I don't have to throw the whole piece of wood away. As you can see, the pencil line is consistent all the way through, so I'm on the right angle. So you can see that one's cut right there, and you can still see the pencil line all the way through it. Now go ahead and mark your other two pieces and then cut those as well in the same fashion. Most of the time we don't have people to help us, so you've got to kind of figure out a way to do it yourself, especially if you want to be a little bit more efficient on your own. So what I'm going to do is I've got the top here, I'm flipping that upside down, and we're going to start building this box upside down. So we have our top, we've got our bottom here, our front, and then we have our two sides and also our center board. So we have the top. I'm going to place the front right there, and I'm going to take one of the sides, as you can see it reads top, right here. Now what we want to do is glue that and tack it in place. We'll get these three on here, and it'll be easier to manage. Actually, as soon as you get the first one on nice and straight, it's a lot easier to handle and you're not all over the place. So I'm going to put some glue on this one edge, and I'm going to attach the side to the front, even though it's facing this direction. Now I've got my gauge here for my 1/4 inch inset. Got my brad nailer ready to go. It's perfect. I'm going to hold it right there. Set that down. Take my brad nailer and put one in. Now what we want to do is find our center, remembering that we're 26 3/4. So half of 26 would be 13. Half of 3/4 is 3/8. So 13 3/8. We want to find that and put a pencil mark. 1, 2, 3/8. We can take our gauge here, our right triangle, whatever you guys want to call it. And we can draw our line right there. Now that's the center line. Now remember our board's 3/4 of an inch thick, so we'll have to come to one side 3/8, so we have a line to line up against. So if we put this back up here, take our tape measure, and let's say we go just to 13. And right at 13, that'll be, we can put an X on this one. This will be the one that we line up to the left of, or to the right of. So we have our pieces here. What you can also do, which I like to do, is I like to draw a line on the back side, so we know exactly where to put the nails in. And then you'll always hit your center board and you never miss. So this is going to go in just like so. We're going to line up right on that pencil line. And now we have the top, which will fit right in its place. And we're going to, if we put it up against each other here, we can see exactly where to put the glue lines. Now we can also measure for the center board on this side as well, just like before, and it should be right at 13 on one side, so we can basically pull it over right to 13, hold it in position, which is what I'm doing. Let's do a little easier. Let's put a little pencil mark right at 13 inches. That way I don't have to hold the tape measure. Bring the center board over. It's about 1/8 of an inch off, no big deal. But now that I've held it over, it's perfect. I can tack it now, so nothing's going to move. It's in perfect condition now. All right, we take our 1/4 inch gauge here, set the side, hold that in place, tack that one. Same with the other side. And we can fire a few more. I'm looking at this line here so I know where to put the staples. Over here. 2 more here. I know I missed one on this side earlier. There we go. So she's coming along very nicely. Here's our front where our 2 speakers are going to go. You can see inside. She's all split up. She's ready to go. She's ready to boom. Now we have the bottom still to do. And here's our bottom. And we even have the front marked. And the bottom and the top go on the same exact way. Last part to make is going to be the back, the part that goes up against the seat. Now we have a couple of angles to deal with here. We've got the angle transition between this angle and the bottom that we want to match up just perfectly. And we also have this angle at the top. Now I've left these purposely so I can show you how to do them on the table saw. Now we could have trimmed this top angle to match this angle, and that's another way of doing it, but I wanted to make it a little bit more difficult for you guys. As you can see, our piece is pretty much ready to go. We siliconed all the edges. And now what we want to do is cut the back. We already know the width, 26 3/4, right? Now the height that it's currently measuring, if we go to from very tip here to very tip here, we're at 13 5/8. So let's cut a piece that's 14 so we have something to work with, especially on the angles. Let's cut one to 15, and then we'll work from there. The width is perfect. The height's a bit long, would you say? Unless we're going to put some amplifiers on here, that'd be kind of cool. But what we need to get rid of is this space right here. You can see that space. And so we're going to have to match the angle here and also here because we got a pretty big space there. But what you want to use is this gauge finder. This will tell you exactly what angle you need to be at. And it's pretty simple. You can just set it right on the table here and set it up against your piece of wood. Lock it down, raise it up, and draw your line. And there's the line that we need to cut to get it to match. Now, my table saw is what they call a standard right tilt. And so that means that the blade will tilt over to the right for you when you turn the side knob. So what we want to do is place our board with the fence so that the line is lined up right with the blade, and we'll look right at the line and the blade from here and make sure we have it lined up. There it is. It's perfect. Perfect angle to match. Now all we have to do is the top one. To match the top, just take your gauge once again, and the angle should be the same. Put it up against here, making sure that the blade is flat across the top, and put your pencil mark right here, and then cut that the same way you cut the other piece, and you'll be ready. So we have our glue. I'm going to find my center again. 13 from one side is the left side of the board. So it'll give me one there, and one there. Maybe 2 on the bottom and we're done. Maybe 3 on the bottom. Yep. Now we know where our center line is, and we obviously know where the outsides are. Now, before I use the template to mark where the woofer holes were going to go, and sometimes you'll have a template and sometimes you won't. What's nice about the JL is they have this insert inside the box that fits the speaker perfectly. So you can pull that insert right out of the box, turn it upside down, and you can use it to draw your line for your woofer hole. So here's our center. And we want to have our woofers all the way towards the center. And I'm going to use this as a guide. It's about 3/4 of an inch right here, the spacing between the cardboard box and the end. And I'm going to take my tape measure And again, I'm going to center this so that it looks nice. There's 1.5 inches there, 1.25 inches, so we're going to make a little adjustment here. It's about 1 3/8 inches. Mark our woofer hole, hopefully without moving. There we go. Mark our woofer hole. So there's our woofer hole there. Now let's imagine that we don't have a template, we don't have a box, this is just a speaker maybe a customer brings in. The old school way of doing it is to take the speaker and just put it upside down, trace the outside diameter of the speaker, and then do a measurement of the speaker's mounting basket. Depending on the speaker, it could be anywhere from 1/2 inch up to 1 inch. This one here is about 7/8. So once you have this outer diameter, you can mark 7/8 in a couple different spots. And then you can pretty much freehand connect these 4 spots just by using your hand as a compass. It'll take some practice, but you can do 8 of them. I just did 4 of them. And so you can see it's not as pretty as having the template, but the job will be the same in the end. So just to make sure that we have these at the same level, got 2 1/4 there, 2 1/4 there, that one's looking good. I'm going to use the template because I have it, just to make sure that it's perfect. Okay, and then I'm going to put an X on the lines that I'm not going to use, so I know which one to use. And we also need to put our ports in. I've got 2 2.5 inch ports, 12 inches in length. We're going to put these right here. No, that's the top. I really wanted to put them at the bottom because at the top, they probably won't fit, as you can see. They're not going to have enough breathing room, but at the bottom, we'll have plenty of breathing room for them. So we're going to want to put these right here. Again, get our measuring tape out. And I'm going to go, remember we have 3/4 plus the 1/4 indentation there, so we have about 1 inch of meat there that we have to stay away from when we put the port in. So let's try 1.5 inches and see how that centers up and also stays away from the subwoofer. So let's see here, there's 1.5 inches in. I think that would be optimal. But I don't have enough room for the speaker. We're running into where the speaker's going to hit the port, so that's not going to be good. So we're really going to have to either move the speaker or move the port or move both. Now if we tuck it right in there and we go 1.25 inches, which is probably the closest to the corner I can get with giving it some breathing room. There's 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches, so I'm going to hold that right there. If I can get it to stop moving on me. Let's try again. I'm going to go 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches off the top and off the side. I'm going to mark it. My pencil. I'm also going to write on here 1 1/4, so I know what the dimension is for the other one in case I have to reference it. Now, we definitely don't have enough space in between the port and the speaker for this, so we're going to have to move that speaker. So I'm going to put an X on that line right there, and we're going to move this to the center and the top pretty much as far as we can go. So here's where we're going to move the speaker to. You can see this lower line is the one we're going to use. We're not going to use this higher line because it's going to be in the way. So we're going to put an X on that, make sure we don't follow it. You can also take some sandpaper or an eraser and just take it off. So here's our port, and then here's our 10. And that's going to be perfect because we have enough room here for the basket, and enough space, so that's going to fit nice. And we also are nice and close, tight together where the support is, which will make it nice and strong. Once you have everything drawn up, it's time to cut the holes. And we're going to do this pretty much old school jigsaw and a drill. And what I like to do is, whoa, hold on there, Nelly. I like to change my bit to a downcut bit anytime I'm doing small holes like this, especially on the ports, because it gives me a little bit more control, a little bit more accurate. And there's our first porthole. Now you can do this a lot faster with a router, and you can see that on our router bit video. But you can see that it fits nice and tight. With a little bit of glue and silicone, it's going to be perfect. Everything's cut out, ready to go. There's a few more steps. Test fit the speakers very quickly. They fit nice. You can see that they come right up to the center line. So they're almost going to be touching. Not quite, but just about touching. We've got our portholes. Now remember that we haven't siliconed the very back panel yet, so we still need to do that. Here we have our enclosure finished. Now we just need to mount our ports. Mounting the ports is sometimes tricky. You can be crazy with it, just put a bunch of screws in it. I like to use silicone, and I also like to use little spacers, so I've cut some 1/2 inch MDF. It's just a 2 by 2 by 1/2 inch. And what I'll do is I'll put it underneath the port in the very back, and it'll hold the port nice and level, and the port won't be completely suspended on the baffle, so it gives it a little bit more strength, especially in the automotive environment where it's been shaking around a lot and it won't break loose. And we'll put a little bit to glue it down. And we'll put it inside the enclosure. And then I'll also put I'll put a big $1/2 size ball right on top of it. Bring the port most of the way in, and then I'll put a ring of silicone around the very edge of the port. And now if you have any large openings from your cutting, you can fill those with the excess. Just take your finger, run it around here, and just use it as like a caulking. And you can also feel when the port is completely level with the MDF. And they also do make port covers that you can use that will facilitate the mounting. But this is box building 101. This is the basics. Once you learn the basics, then you can go into the fancier stuff. Welcome to the grand finale. This is box number 3, and it's going to be our bandpass box. We're going to use the same JL Audio 10W1s. Now this is going to be a 3-chamber box. You're going to have 2 sealed chambers, just like the very first enclosure we built. Then you're going to have a ported chamber in the center. We're going to need 2 4-inch by 7-inch in length ports, PVC ports. We're going to use the same MDF, we're going to use the same glue, same brad nailer, just a little bit different procedure. And the bandpass enclosure is designed to give you just the frequencies that you want. It stops at the top and it stops at the bottom and gives you just the bass that you want. It's an enclosure that's very difficult to build. It takes a lot more math, and it's a little bit difficult. So this is not something that everybody builds, but if you want to build something that's a little bit more challenging and something that looks nice, this is a really cool enclosure to build. Plus, you can take these ports and bring them into the car, whether it be between the seats or in the rear deck, and you can have all 100% of your sound right inside the listening environment. Now, we're going to get started here, and we're going to do our sketch, and I'm also going to put some sketch up on the screen for you to take a look at. But for the most part, it's a similar size box, but now we're going to have 3 chambers with the ports in the center and the speakers on the sides here. Now I gave JL Audio a call, and they gave me the dimensions that I should build this box to. It was 0.65 for the sealed compartment and 1.75 for the ported compartment, and they even gave me the ports, so you can call these guys or use one of the softwares like Term Pro, and you can get the dimensions and build it to it. There's a lot of factors you need to consider. We're going to have the 2 center boards plus the outsides, so you need to subtract for that in your airspace. Also, in order to do this properly, you're going to need a plexiglass window, so we're going to want to have a plexiglass window inlay in the back of the enclosure, which will look really nice, and it'll also enable you to put the speakers in and take the speakers out if you need to service them. So we're going to build this really nice enclosure, plus we're going to incorporate that angle to make it a little bit more difficult and a bit more realistic for use. As far as the ports, I'm not really decided whether we're going to put them on top or put them on the front side, bringing them into the car, but we'll get to that. So our first step is to calculate our airspace. We know what our airspace is. 0.65, 175, 0.65, that's 3.05 cubic feet. Let's just call it 3 cubic feet. That's going to be our total volume. And we know that if we make it 36 wide, 12 by 12, there's 3 cubic feet. I'll put this sheet up on the monitor for you to give you a better idea of what it's going to look like. But you'll have the rough dimensions here in millimeters, also in inches, and the box that we're going to build. Now we need to make our cut sheet just like before, and let's work on that now. So let's start our cut sheet. This is basically what the enclosure is going to look like. Now we're going to start with, let's say, a 12 by 12 by 36. That'll give us the 3 cubic feet. Let's see here. We're going to need the front. I guess I'm drawing those a little bit big. We're going to need the back. We're going to need a top. So let's see here. Front, back, top. We're going to need a bottom. And then we're going to need actually 4. We'll call them centers and sides. T-E-R-S and sides. And we're going to need 4 of those. All right. So let's start with the front piece that we're going to need. Now the front is actually going to be the piece that is holding, or what we would normally have the speakers firing at us. So we're going to make this one out of plexi. So the front's going to be plexi, and if you're looking inside the trunk, that's what you would see. The back is going to have that angle on it. So remember, we're going to build something that resembles this. So this is going to be the back here. And we really don't know what that dimension is yet. I'd rather leave it for the end. It's the way I like to build stuff. And then we see here, we got the top, which we do know the dimension. We're going to make that top, we're going to make that 12 inches. And we're going to make the bottom 15 inches because we want to add an extra, no, I'm sorry, 16 inches, my mistake. We want to add 4 inches here to give us this angle. And it makes it real easy math, so when we do the math, instead of 12 times 12 times, let's see, it's 36, we're going to do 12 times 14 times 36, and it'll give us the accurate cubic foot measurement on that. So let's see here, we have the back, and then the top. So the top is going to be 34 1/2 by 12. We're going to do the bottom at the same size, 34 1/2 by, now this one's going to be 16 because that's the dimension 16. Now the overall height is going to be 12 inches as well. And so the front piece, now the front piece is going to have to be inset in because we want a flush mount a piece of acrylic on there. So it is going to be 12 inches tall, but the plexi we're going to have to take away 1.5 inches for the 3/4 and 3/4 on both sides. So that'll be 10 1/2. 10 1/2 by 33 because we're taking 1.5 inches off of the width as well so that it sinks in nicely. And then it leaves us with the back that we'll cut 34 1/2 and we'll cut it a little long. And that should get us started. Now on the sides, we're going to start off with 15 1/4 by 12s. And that 15 is actually compensating for the plexiglass. It's taking a 3/4 inch off of that plexiglass. And I'll put a nice sheet up on the screen, looks like this one for you, so you have the dimensions. I've got all of my pieces cut. So what we want to do now is kind of a pre-assembly just to see how they fit. And now I've got my top here, my bottom. I even cut a front, even though we're going to use plexiglass, I did cut a front full size, so we also have a template to make the plexiglass from, and we can assemble the box a little easier with having basically like a stand-in. But I'm not going to cut the plexi till the very last moment. We've got our two center pieces and our two outside pieces. Here's our back, which is cut a little bit long, so we can put the bevel edges on it at the last moment. So we have the back, the bottom, and we have the top. So I'm going to slide these over. And I'm going to take the front here, and it's going to be designed to fit on top like this, on top of the bottom. Lay my top here for a moment, take one of the sides, and put it in place. And I remember, just like the other enclosures, I designed these to sink in 1/4 of an inch for upholstery reasons. And I also cut these down 3/4 of an inch so that the plexiglass can set into the enclosure nice and flush. So there's the side, here goes the top. There we are. Of course, it's not glued together yet, but I wanted to give you an idea what the enclosure is going to look like when we're finished with it. Pretty cool. The next step we need to do is we need to cut holes in the two center boards for the speaker. It's going to be really tough to get a jigsaw in there once we put it together. So we definitely want to cut those holes out now for the 210s. And you can put the magnets anywhere you want, inside or outside. I'm going to put them on the outside. So just like before, I'm going to use the box as the template to mount the speakers, and I'm going to center them right on here so I have the easiest access to mount the speaker when the time comes. Before we go any further, we need to know exactly where the center boards are going to go. Now, according to our design, 0.65 is where the airspace needs to be. So right here we need 0.65, over here we need 0.65, and that'll be 1.75. So we really only need to figure out the one, match this one, everything else should take care of itself as long as we built everything else to spec, which we did. So what I'm going to do is take the dimension of the side, which we know is 11 1/4 and 15 1/4, and to compensate for the angle here, the difference is 4 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the top number and add half of that, 2 inches. So this will be 13 by 12, and then whatever the depth needs to be, so we get at 0.65. And I've calculated, I checked it at 6 inches, I checked it at 8 inches, it wasn't right. 7 inches was 0.63. If I do 7 1/4, we're 0.654. Close enough. So where we need, this is the bottom. Between the outside board and the inside board, we need 7 1/4 inches. And that's exactly where it'll go from both sides. So I've got the side in place. Spin this a little bit for you. Basically it's 3/4 inch, so it's pretty easy to figure out. So I'm going to mark the front and I'm going to mark the back. 7 1/4. So when we start gluing and stapling, we know exactly where to go. And put little arrows and marks. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, we're ready for the assembly. I'm going to take the top and line it up with the bottom. And I'm going to transfer these lines where the center boards go from the top to the bottom. I'm going to take my straight edge, and where we marked them at 7 1/4, I'm going to bring them over. And so we'll have lines that match top and bottom perfectly. Let's flip that over and do it on both sides. That way we know where the brads go and we know where the boards go. Line those up, make sure they're right on the line. Everything's got to be perfect with this enclosure. It's also one of the most rewarding enclosures to build. Okay, I got my pieces all set. I'm going to put my glue on the top. I'm going to take the beveled edge, just like we did in the ported enclosure. That beveled edge matches the front. So I'm going to put that beveled edge right where it belongs. Match up this back end here. Okay, I'm doing the outsides first. That one's looking good. This one moved a little bit. Once you got it on the line, you can push down on it. Pop a brad in it. This one's good. Now we can glue these legs and attach these. We still need to cut the back and cut the window. So we'll keep moving. Now, depending on what you're going to cover the box with, when you cut your plexiglass piece, which we're going to do soon, cut it anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch smaller so that you can wrap the carpet or vinyl around the enclosure and secure the window. I cut this one 1/8 of an inch smaller just so you can see that it fits pretty easily. And what we'll have to do is put little support brackets inside where it doesn't have support. You can see it has great support right here, but we really don't have any support along the sides out here or even in the center. So it really will depend, but you can put little 3/4 inch strips in there to give you the extra strength. So we know that that fits. Now let's move on to the back. We've got this board, just like we did it before. We need to match up this bottom angle, just like we did on the previous enclosure, and that one's pretty simple. I finished all the siliconing. She's all sealed up nicely. And before we get to the plexiglass, hate to keep putting you guys off on the plexi window, but we need to put our ports in. Now we can put them on the top or we can put them in the front. I'm choosing to put them in the top. We have to make sure that we have room for the plexi window, so we have to leave at least 1 inch here and make sure we have some space in between them. Now we can do them just like this, and that would be kind of easy and cool. Like this is going to be a little bit more difficult because we don't have a lot of room here. We got 1 inch there. We're only going to have maybe a 1/2 inch in between the ports if we do it this way. So just to keep it nice and easy, because this is building box 101, not 201 or anything else. Let's see what 4 inches on each side gives us. We go 4 inches from each side, gives us a nice breathing room of about 1.5 inches. I'd like to see a little more, keep it a little stronger. Let's go to 3.5 inches. I like that better. So we'll go 3.5, 3.5 from the front and the side. And that's exactly where we'll put our ports. All right, we're ready to cut the plexi window. I've got a piece of 3/4 inch acrylic here, Polycast. It's a really good brand. We sell it here at Select. And anytime you're working with it, you want to always check your corners, because even in shipping, no matter how it's packed, the guys in shipping, UPS, Federal Express, they always seem to drop it off the aircraft carrier and scratch it up. So what I always like to do is, if I need 33 inches, I'll cut a 35 and then a 33, so I trim both sides so it comes out absolutely perfect. Again, the blade that you need, 80 tooth, no melt, very important. Safety glasses, you need to hold onto the plastic, Let the blade do the cutting. Don't force it through it, because once it starts to melt, it'll ruin your plastic. All right? So I'm going to set this one at, we need 32 7/8. I've already cut it once. So there's 32 7/8. I've got one clean side that I just finished trimming. I want to trim another clean side, and then we'll be ready to go. So now we have our width. All we need now is to cut our height, and should fit right in the window. Take our mirror or plexi window, put it in here. All we need to do now is screw it in, get our recessing bit, put a few holes in it, a few extra support beams. We could even do plexi mirror inside. You could use paint, whatever you want. Put your woofers in, wire it up, she's ready to go. And so we've done it all. Here's the ported 2 cubic foot, 3 cubic foot. We did the 1 cubic foot sealed. I want to thank JL Audio for giving us some speakers, also Boston Acoustics for donating some speakers. I want to thank my staff for allowing me to come back into the shop and build this stuff and teach you guys how to do this stuff. I really enjoy it myself. My name is Robert Garza with Select Products, and thank you once again for buying our videos. Take care.